Hello, thank you for joining us today. So we are now finishing the International Congress on Bioprinting and Biofabrication. So what are your guys' reaction to the Congress so far?
Was good. Yeah. Was good. This is my first conference on design engineering, and I can really feel the environment. It's good.
I think we have a good idea where we can focus and starting point, and so I think we do have a development in next year.
This is my third conference, so I was to the first with Brian Derby, and I was really surprised to note the number that increase of people that work. And I hope that there is this increasing, that is not just something that is fashion now, but that can be continued and can develop.
So the work in your lab is a particular process of biofabrication. Could you explain a little bit, just quickly, for the listeners, what your process involves and what your idea of biofabrication is?
Okay, the idea of our lab is biofabricate a sensorized multi-level scaffold. The system that we developed is based on the extrusion of polymer, of hydrogel or polymer solution using pneumatic system, and in order to create not only mesoscale of scaffold but also microscale and nanoscale, including cells inside, and including inside the scaffold something that is able to monitor the cell activity, because the problem with microfabricated scaffold is that the people can, is it good to produce scaffold that mimic tissue, natural tissue, but is not able to monitor the activity or say if the cells are good or not. So our idea is create a bioactive scaffold, so scaffold with cells inside, but the scaffold give information if the tissue is growing well or not, if the metabolism is activated or not.
Okay, and what are some of the problems that you've encountered in your research field?
Principally the problem we encountered was with the biologist group, because normally biologist group are focused on working on two-dimensional structure on petri dishes. They are not able, or they don't want, or are not have the ideas how work on new structure, on 3D structure, and so they are not able to change a little and find and approach these new techniques and this new system of culture, of cell culture.
What are some of your current projects that you're working on right now, besides involving sensors inside the inside the scaffolding system? Are there other projects that you're working on? And
we are working on developing also bioreactor system that where is it possible culture the cells included in this bioactive scaffold in order to train these cells and to reproduce the real functional tissue, because some aspect that here is not well focused is that, okay, we are able to produce scaffold that mimic tissue, but tissue is alive, is in an environment where there are forces. So if we just produce scaffold, but we don't train the cells to live in that scaffold, I think that perhaps we don't can make great result for research in this area.
And the bioreactor, what type of sizes are we talking about?
There is, in this moment we are developing bioreactor just where is it possible our scaffold, so just it's big like a petri dishes, because we must give to biologists, because if you don't give something that is similar to petri dishes, they become crazy. So But in this case, it's a system where we can modulate pressure of a gas inside, the inlet of nutrients, and also the mechanical forces acting. Of, for example, if I sit scaffold with osteoblast or cartilage, where the mechanical forces acting are really important.
Okay.
So we can modulate different parameters.
Taking into account the presentations that we've heard just until now, this is 2 days into the conference now, where do you see tissue engineering, biofabrication, where do you see the field moving for the next 5 years, we'll say?
I think the main goal is to understand what biological environment needs, so what cells need, the mechanical properties, how they influence, and how architecture influence, and how environment influence. When starting from this point, we can grow up, so giving scaffolds, sensing them, and giving a dynamic environment. So I think that in next year we can have good results and achieve the goal and make the goal. So reproduce tissue-like scaffolds and systems.
With a microvasculature on the inside?
I don't know. Obviously, we aim to do that.
Right.
I think that just one thing is important, that if now we don't change our idea about biofabrication, but just we won't produce scaffold where we see cells and cells grow, perhaps tissue engineering and biofabrication, all the possible society can die in just in 5 years.
Right.
We need to change the focus of our attention and start to create modulated scaffold where the cells are there and self-assembling the scaffold. So where I'm able to realize a scaffold that mimic the morphology of tissue, where the cells are attracted, endothelial cells in particular size, I don't know, liver cells in another, cells of biliary duct in another, and after they start to reorganize like a self-assembling scaffold with sensors and so on, and so only in this case we can improve in that area. Or this area, I think that is future, is the death.
Does anybody else have any comments to make? It's okay.
I think we can have an engineer approach to this field, and we can give to biologists the idea that we have to quantify something. I don't know what, but we have to a sort of quantification of a parameter so that we can tune and model each things they want to achieve the result you want. So it's sort of guidelines so that we, from the engineering point of view, can give results, structures, sensors, dynamical environment to reproduce the biological environment. But if we don't know what to tune, we cannot have result.
Okay.
One of the main problems is to communicate between engineering and biologists, because for us, we are all engineering, are important some characteristics, some mechanical characteristics. For biologists are important other characteristics, and it's difficult to communicate that these two types of characteristics are dependent on each other. So this is a step that we have to do.
Okay. If that's it, I would like to thank you very much for the interview, and I will see you tomorrow.
Bye.